I was walking the city streets, trying to figure out a way to make a good video tutorial on lighting and shadows. And then it hit me. I'm making an intro right now. I mean, you're watching it. So that's when I decided I was gonna stop talking and start in the video. Yeah.
What's up, everybody? Today is going to be a tutorial about lights and shadows, as you can tell by the intro video. And there's a few things I'm going to cover really quick. If you look at my work file, it looks really crazy. The police siren lights are, they just render really weird in the window. And also the shadow at the bottom, if you notice, if I scroll out here and do a Command R, everything renders correctly, but that's just something you have to be aware of when you're doing these kind of light effects and things like that. Things don't render correctly on the screen, or they do render correctly, but they're just not visible at the time. So I'm going to use the intro video as the tutorial file, and I just wanted to show you a few things. I'm going to go ahead and turn off the lights, all of the lighting effects really quick, and the spotlight, and even the shadow. I'll go ahead and turn it off. So I'm going to start off by just showing you just the work file, and if I do a Command R, oh, there's actually an effect on there already. Let me take off one of the effects. So I have shading on, and that's going to be the first thing I'll show you really quick. So if I render this normally, do a Command R. Oh, character still has that. Why is that? Hold on, I don't think it took it off. Shadows, shading. Oh, I didn't hit apply, I don't think. So I do a Command R. You can see my character's really flat, very cartoony, which he always is. These shadows up here are just things I added to the background that I made in Illustrator. And I'll show you the difference between this and shading. Double click my character, go into the General tab, or Shadows tab, and hit shading and apply. And then I'll render that again. And you can see now that there's just this little kind of soft glow or shading onto the character. So that's extremely easy and basic way to do shading on your character. And let's see. I'm trying to get them side by side so you can tell the difference. So you can see the character right here. It's just, it adds a little bit more depth into the character when you're doing shading or turn shading on. It's very simple to do. It's adding it to everything on this group layer. My character is made up of lots of different layers, as you guys know. But when I add that shading onto the group layer itself, the bone layer, it just shades that automatically. So some people want to know how to do shadows. Again, this is extremely easy to do if you're trying to, you just want to drop shadow. Put something directly behind. So if I go to shadows and turn shadow on, I can offset it to be farther or nearer to my character and apply it. And when I render this, you can see there's a really nice shadow behind my character, which is great. If you want to have a character's shadow project on the wall, that's the easiest way to do it. But say for this scene, you saw that I had a shadow that's on the ground. So what I did was, I'm actually going to erase the shadow that I have. And so I've already animated my character. I've done all the dialogue and movements and things like that. So once I have my animation done, I'm going to click on my character, and I'm just going to duplicate the entire layer and rename it Shadow. And then I'll move it beneath my character. And now I'm going to change the point of origin, and that's just the point of rotation on your character. So if I click near his feet and I'm on the shadow, which is just a duplicate of my character, and then do the manipulate layer or transform layer and grab the rotate button and just rotate my character sideways. Let me go ahead and move this over. So I want my character's feet to be roughly in the same spot. So I'm going to rotate him to the left, and then I'm also going to squeeze my character by just grabbing the transform handles on the side and turn him this way. So he looks pretty flat. Now when I go through my animation, he's going to have all the same animation. But you'll notice that he moved positions a little bit. So I'm just going to go to where he stops walking, which is this frame right here, 103. And I'm just going to grab him and move him underneath my character. So he kind of stays in the same place. And I'm going to have to do that again also on this frame, frame 94. Just to keep him in line with my character. So if I render this, this looks really weird. It just looks like, you know, I have a very flat render of my character. But to turn this into a shadow, it's extremely easy to do. You just double click on that layer. And then I'm going to hit this button that's called Colorize. And I'm going to go ahead and change that to black. And it's already set at half transparency. I'll turn it up just a little bit. And hit OK. And apply. And if I do a Command R again and render it, now you can see it's just a solid black, which is really cool because it's already looking like a shadow. But you can also add a little bit of a blur to it. So we'll go ahead and type in, I don't know, we'll try 33 and hit apply. And render that. Now you can see it's got this nice blur to it. Getting the feet to line up perfectly is something that you'll have to kind of mess with. It's not a perfect technique, but you can, you know, kind of finesse your way through it and make it look better. But the shadow will move exactly how your character does. So if I render this out, it's gonna project on the floor just like that. And you can make it a little lighter. Let me go back. And I should have been doing all of those things. I'm gonna do a Command Z and back up quite a bit, because I should have been doing this all on frame 0. So take the shadow, we'll go ahead and rotate him, flatten him out a lot, and go to these frames and just make sure that I'll put him next to the back foot. Like that. Go back to frame 0 and make sure that colorize layer is on, black. We'll make it a little lighter actually, and blur it just about, let's do 22. And render that. So now you can see we have a shadow on the ground as well as on the wall back there. I'll go ahead and take the wall one off really quick. So shadows, turn shadow off and apply. So that's how I did the shadow on the ground, which, as you can see, that's pretty easy to do. But then also in my intro, just take a look at it really quick. So I have 3 effects on here that I made. So the first one is the spotlight that's coming down and kind of swinging back and forth, which is really easy to do. I have the shadow on the ground. And then I also have some police lights flickering on the character and on parts of the background itself. So if I scroll through here, you can see that he kind of lights up red and blue, red, blue, red, blue, and it just keeps cycling through. And you'll also notice that on the pipe and on the edge of the wall and on the edge of this newspaper stand box, that those are flashing too. So let me show you how I did those. I'll show you the easy one first. So the spotlight is really, really easy. Here's what it looks like, but I'll go ahead and delete it. and start over again so you can see how I created that. Select all, delete. So, by creating a new vector layer, and I named it Spotlight. Well, I'll go through the whole thing. New vector layer, Spotlight. And this is something that I've done in a tutorial a few years ago. But it's really easy to do as well as the shadow. So I'm going to draw a box. I'm going to turn the autofill and the stroke off really quick. And then I'll draw another box inside. Then I'm going to hit U, which is create shape. You can also click this button right here. And I'm going to click and drag over both the boxes. And what it's going to do is going to punch out that middle box. And then for the fill, I'll just select black, and I'm going to make it fairly dark, but a little bit see-through by adjusting this bar right here, and hit spacebar. And on MOHO, you'd have to hit the Create Shape button. So if I render this out, you can see that everything's dark in the background, and then there's this kind of hole where there's some light. And all you have to do is animate the light and add a little blur. I'll just make this into a spotlight. You know, you can say this is a street lamp or something like that. I just made it move back and forth because I just like the way it looked. So I did that. I'll double click the layer, blur the radius again. We'll do 22. And Command R just to render to see how good that looks. I think it needs to be blurred even more. I want it to kind of gradually turn into darkness. So let's double click that. Let's try 44. Render that. Maybe even more. Let's go 77. Let's get crazy. And render that. There we go. So now we've got this really nice fall off to the darkness and light. And all I did to make this move was I went to frame 1, hit G, and I grabbed these 2 points at the bottom. Oops. Grab those, hit T to move them, to transform. So I moved it over a little bit to the left. That created a keyframe on keyframe 1, on frame 1, and then I'll go to 48. I'll move it over to the right. And then 96, frame 96, I'm going to select that first keyframe, do a Command C, Command V, copy and paste. So it's going from its original position over to the right and back to its original position on frame 1, right there. And then I'll do right click and cycle. And we'll go to cycle to frame 2 so it doesn't repeat the first frame. And now we have a light that's just swinging back and forth. Let's actually move that a little bit over. I'm gonna move the whole thing. Stretch it out a little bit just so the character is in line. So now we have a spotlight and the shadow underneath. Let's do Command R just to look at it one more time. So now you can see there's a shadow there. Shadow on the wall, which I thought I took off. And a swinging light. And let's double click on the character. Shadows, shadow off, and apply. I think I just didn't hit apply. Oh, and I'm not on frame 1, so let's go back. And shadow off, apply. There we go. So now we have the shadow on the ground, lighting from above. Let's render that real quick. I just want to check. Still there. Let me just select, I think this one's drop shadow. Let's just delete all those. See, it made a bunch of keyframes. There we go. Yeah. Kind of looks good with it on too, but whatever. Let's go ahead and delete those. That's the character shading. Let's put that on frame 0. So, shading on. Alright, that looks pretty good. So now I'm going to show you the police lights. So here's what they actually look like before they're rendered. Let me turn the spotlight off. And I'm going to drag it out of the group just so you can see what it is. So all I did was draw a red box and a blue box and had them pass over the screen over and over again. But we need to use masking to make the effect just on the places that we want. So I'm going to start over. Let me go ahead and delete this. And I'll delete this one too. Okay, so we'll start from the very beginning. Add a vector layer. We'll call this police lights. And I am going to draw a square. And the first square I'll just select red. I'll make it completely solid. And oh, let's go ahead and autofill. Oh, it's in the layer still, or the group layer. So we need to do this outside of the group just so you can see what's going on, because I was using masking. So I'll draw a red square here, the whole height of the scene. Maybe a little longer. I want to make it at least big as the character, because I'm going to make it pass over him and some of the things on the screen. Then I'll copy and paste. I'm going to leave a little space in between, so there's parts where the character and the background just look normal, so it looks like the siren lights are spinning. And then I'll hit Q and select this square, and we'll select a blue. And all I'm going to do is animate these two squares passing over the scene. So I'm going to go to let's go to frame 72 and select the police lights, everything. And I'm just going to move them over to the other side of the scene itself, the window. And then all I'm going to do is cycle that, so it just keeps doing that over and over again. So we'll cycle to 2. So right now that looks really crazy. If I render it, it's just these big color blocks passing over. Now I want them to look more like lights. So in the timeline, I'm going to put the color over the character a little bit, just so I can see what it's actually going to look like when we change the property. So I'll double click the police lights, and I want to change this to, I think it was screen. Hit apply and render that. Yeah, you can see how it reflects on the character. Let's try some different options just to see what they look like. Screen, overlay, and I'm doing a Command R to check to see what that looks like. That's too dark. That doesn't look like a light to me. So let's try add. And Command R. That looks pretty good. So we'll use add as the property for that layer. Let's get rid of these renders. Let me see what blue looks like on him too. So we'll go here. I just want to see what it looks like on him. Command R. And it's really light, but I kind of like that. I think we'll go ahead and use that. Again, we want to use a blur to make this look a little bit more realistic. We don't want it to look like such a sharp edge on the light. So we'll hit apply. Let's go into the timeline and look at that again. Render. Okay, now it's got a nice soft edge to it. We can do that even more. Let's go ahead and do the same blur that we did before. We'll go ahead and turn it up to 77. And apply. And Command R. I just keep hitting Command R because I want to see what it's going to look like. So that looks good, but I don't want the light to be projected on everything. I want it to just show on the character. So, you know, I'm just imagining the car siren or the lights being kind of down over here to the bottom right. And I want it to just hit the edges of some of the stuff on the background also. So to do that, my character and the lights need to be in the same group. So you can see right here. Let's get rid of that because I'll show you that in a second. I have the character, the shadow, and the box, and the newspaper box and the background all on the same group layer. So I'm going to drag and drop the police lights into this group, and let me turn off all the masking so we can see no masking in this group. So right now this looks just like it did before. Character is walking in the frame. The lights are passing him over and over. If I render it, still got that additive property on it, so we can, you know, have that nice glow instead of a solid block color, even though it doesn't look like that on here. And now that we want to have it just show on the character, we're going to double click the group and say masking and hide all and apply. And we only want to use the character as the mask. So let's double click the shadow. We'll go to masking and say don't mask this layer. Basically taking the mask off of the background. Don't mask this layer. And don't mask this layer. Background objects and all that other stuff. So the only thing right now, you can see this little plus sign right here. And then the little tiny, there's a circle that's half white, half black. That's showing that layer is being masked, and it's being masked to the character. So right now the character looks extremely weird. You can see that he's red, and that's just because the color's only showing on him. So let me do a Command R. And now you can see he's red. So what that's going to look like as we scroll through the timeline, when you see his the shadow turn red and the character turn red, that just means it's passing over, which is going to give that effect of flashing lights.
I was walking the city streets,
which is really cool. But now we want to add a couple of just a little spots where we want to also see that light hit. So I want it to hit on the side of the mailbox. I want it to hit on the side of the building. Whoops. And maybe the side of this pipe. You can do more, but I just wanted to show you how you can isolate different areas. So we're going to create another layer. And we're going to put it just above our character. And we're just going to call this Object Reflections. Oops. Reflections. Sorry if I'm mumbling. It's like 2 in the morning and I'm recording this, so I'm a little bit off today. And apply. Okay, so now we're just going to draw shapes to where we want that reflection to hit. So I'm going to hit the square button or shape tool, draw shape. We'll draw a square and we'll do autofill. And I'm just going to drag and drop. I can't see. Well, I'm going to take the object reflections layer out of the group layer for a second because it's being masked. And I'm just gonna hit T, and then I'm gonna hit A to add new points, and I'm just kind of moving this shape over the right side of this newspaper box, because I want it to reflect there. And then I'll hit S, and we'll hit the side of this building too. And then maybe a little bit of this pipe. Now we're gonna drag and drop that into the group layer. And you can see right now it's already selected. It's showing that it's being masked as well. So mask this layer. So let's see. Now the problem is it's just showing that shape. So if I do a Command R and render, it's not doing anything on the mailbox on the side of the wall where we added that stuff. So we want to add this to the mask, I believe. Yeah, just like the character. So we'll double click it, masking, add to mask. Oh, let's do add to mask but keep invisible. Well, first I'll show you add to mask. So if I apply that, now if I do a Command R and render it, you're gonna see these big blocky blue shapes that I just added. We don't want that. We only want to use the shapes as an area for the light to mask through. So actually what we want to do is double click this, go to masking and say add to mask but keep invisible. So all that basically means is that the police lights that we wanted to pass over that area is only going to show in these solid colored parts. Doesn't matter what color it is because it's going to be invisible. So if I hit apply, you can see that it looks like they disappeared. But if I scroll through here, do a Command R, maybe. Well, they should be. I'm trying to find a frame where the light should be hitting them. It should be right here. That's not working. Well, I'm not cutting this out because I want you guys to see why. Let's see, object reflections. Was I not in the group? Ah, I must not have been in the group because now you can see that the light's shining on there. But I also need to blur that as well. Object reflections, let's blur that at 77 also. So now the light should be passing. See how they're lighting up, or they're showing that they're being passed by that red color. And when I render it, it's actually just hitting parts of the scene. So let me render this really quick so you guys can see. I'll render this first with without the spotlight on. We'll just render 200 frames or so at half size. Okay, so here's just the little render of just the police lights in action.
I was walking the city streets, trying to figure out a way to make a good...
It looks good, but it's really slow. Let's see. So I'm going to render one more time. Let's close this if I can. Speed those up. Come on. Police lights. We'll just shorten the cycle so they're a lot faster. Let's see what that... Yeah, that's probably better. Okay, now I'm going to render one more time, but I'll have the spotlight turned on too. It's a little bit more atmospheric. Okay, so here's another render. I did the lights a little bit faster, or the police lights. Yeah, that looks a lot better.
I was walking the city streets, trying to figure out a way to make a good video tutorial on lighting and shadow.
I know I've kind of bouncing all over the place as far as what I was talking about. But here are just, let me just go over the main things just really quick once again. Turn the police lights off, reflections. So the spotlight, that was extremely easy. Again, drawing a shape, punching it out, making sure that the fill is see-through, and then also making sure it's see-through, and then also that the layer is blurred. That's literally all that all you have to do to make kind of a spotlight effect. And I just animated the points, just 2 points at the bottom. So that was really easy. Easy to do. Same with the shadow, very easy to do. All I did was copy my character after I created my animation. So you can see the character is just doing the exact same thing. And then to change that into a shadow, as you can see right there, it's just my character laying down flat, is to duplicate it, and then all you have to do is make sure you turn on colorize layer and blur that. And then you have a shadow like this. And you can have a hard shadow if you want, you don't have to blur it. And then the last one was that little bit more complicated, but not really. The police lights. Let me double click on that. Masking. If I say don't mask this layer, this is how it would normally look. It's just these two big color blocks moving over the scene over and over again. All I did was move them to the side and cycle them. But since they're in a group with the character, I go to masking and I mask this layer, and it's gonna mask to whatever has a plus sign on it. So even though it looks weird in the timeline, you can tell when those color blocks are going over the character, because they turn red and blue just like that. But remember to double click your layer properties and change the layer blending mode to add. You can change it to all these. There's a lot of different effects that you can try out, but for this one I chose to use add because that just looks more like lights flashing. And then the object reflections, that's literally, I just drew some boxes. Let's double click on that and say don't mask this, so we can see where they are. There's just, it doesn't matter what color they are. If I change this to, you know, yellow, purple, and orange, this doesn't matter. These are just solid blocks of where we want the police lights to go through. So they look weird until I double click it and I say masking and I say add to mask but keep invisible and apply. So they look like they disappear, but they're really just, did I get that one too? Yeah. But in reality, when all of those things are turned on, they're just showing where those lights are that we created. So I hope that wasn't too confusing. If you have any questions at all, just leave them down below and I will try and answer you as quick as possible. You can also send me a message on Facebook. Just Facebook, look up Poptugi, and I get questions there. And for any of my patrons, I'll be sending this to you tonight or tomorrow. So keep an eye out for that in your emails. But yeah, thanks for watching.